It's 5 o'clock in Pirate Country, and it's time to get pumped up with the P-Man. Hit the door and hit the road. 94.3 The Game is going to get you home, and the P-Man's not holding back.
Yes! Yes! Pirates win! Pirates win!
Bring on the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
Holy mackerel! Oh, my goodness!
The flagship station of the ECU Pirates.
All right, nothing like a good piece of drama to get everything started here on this Patrick Johnson Show Thursday. Coming up, Joe Giglio from the OG Podcast will be joining us. We're going to talk about everything that is going on, particularly with the Bill Belichick situation. This thing just continues to have layers and layers. Now, Belichick's daughter-in-law has thrown some shade at Jordan Hudson. As this drama out of the CBS Sunday morning interview grows. Jennifer Schmidt, the wife of Belichick's son Stephen, seemed to throw shade at Hudson over her decision to interrupt the CBS News interviewer and his question about how the couple met. The interview and the response have led to plenty of criticism of Hudson and Belichick, though some have come out and shown their support for the pair. Julian Edelman and Rod Gronkowski among them. It's part of their Dudes Being Dudes podcast. So when you get the endorsement of Dudes Being Dudes, you're just great. You're golden then. Anyway, Belichick has come out and said, well, she is kind of serving and acting as the publicist. And, you know, as Schmidt commented on the situation, calling Hudson's actions into question. Publicists act in a professional manner and don't storm off the set, delaying the interview. It's unclear if Schmidt was simply referring to the TMZ report and how Hudson had stormed off the set, or if she had more distinct insight into what went on during the interview. The post is notable since Schmidt's husband is a member of Belichick's coaching staff. And, of course, that's been the subject of one of the emails that The Athletic got its hands on through an open records request. Hudson wrote to North Carolina's media team about how to frame Stevens' hiring as defensive coordinator. Belichick was hired by UNC to lead the football program in December and later hired his son for a role on his coaching staff to work under his dad. This is after he worked for his dad in New England and had been the defensive coordinator with the University of Washington. In her email, she expressed concern over the perception of nepotism in the hire. This is Jordan Hudson, and told the school that photos should not be used of Bill and Stephen together to prevent any controversy. She also suggested they not refer to Stephen as Bill's son. This, again, is what she's telling the University of North Carolina how to handle all of this. So it thickens, and we're going to get a little insight into what is going on from Bill in the Bill Belichick situation from Joe Giglio. All right, so that's just some of the latest. Pilkington is here, I guess. My earpiece is not functioning properly.
Uh-oh.
I can hear, I just can't get it to fit in my ear. Yes, I can hear you, damn it. Quit asking me if I can hear you. If I couldn't hear you, I'd say, Pilk, I can't hear you. It's not fitting in my ear. And I'm so close to pulling a Pilkington and just swearing on the ear. That's how irritated I am right now. That I'm going to swear on the air. You almost got me.
Patrick will never be a Secret Service agent, not because he's not qualified or not because he doesn't love the country, because he can't figure out the earpiece. The famous
Let me
earpiece
tell you
that
something.
Secret Service guys wear.
If that fat chick that was on the detail in Pennsylvania
oh, God.
when Trump got shot at can be on, I can be on.
She knows how to work an earpiece, Patrick. That's the number one thing of the job. Number one.
No. The number one name of the job is protect the asset, and in that case, the president. And they did a lousy job. Or excuse me, the person running for president at the time, the candidate, and they did a lousy job of that. Lousy. So if she could do that, I could do that. Pilk, you are a nerd of all sports.
Yep.
We got lacrosse action going on right now and then later on tonight in the American. So Gabby Sartori is going to be with us because ECU, is this the first time or is this the second time in 3 years?
Second time in 3 years. When we hosted a few years ago the tournament, we played in it.
Okay.
Well.
All right.
That would have been really bad if
seed?
you host and didn't play. Yep, they're the 3 seed.
Yeah.
South Florida.
Well, that's what Old Dominion's doing.
Yeah.
Old Dominion's hosting it but not playing in it.
Embarrassment.
There's rumor that ECU, well, not rumor, I know they have. There's word that ECU's efforting to host for maybe the second time in the last 7 or 8 years the softball tournament, which I hope they do next year.
Fingers crossed for better weather than we had last time.
Yes,
but it's the product, the good job of the people at East Carolina, the people of the American was great. Mother Nature was a witch.
She always is. But it's okay, isn't it, if you go and you do if you host a tournament like that, which is multiple teams, because the lacrosse tournament's just 4 teams.
Yeah.
If you are hosting it and you don't make the finals or maybe the semifinal, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's not great, but it's more understandable if you have other layers and rounds to get through. Where in the lacrosse thing in your Old Dominion and you've got 4 teams, so just 3 games and you're not in any of them.
That's rough. You don't have to worry about it in softball. All 10 teams make the softball tournament. Not that I think even if they did only take top 8 or whatever, like baseball does, I don't think Shane Winkler would have any issue getting his team into the tournament. But, yeah, with lacrosse taking 4 of the – I don't even know how many teams are in the conference has changed every year for the last 4 years.
Well, Florida's no longer a part of it.
Florida's no longer in it. Somebody else jumped out, I thought, as well. Is Vandy still in it? Yeah, they are.
Because Vandy's playing right now against
JMU.
Against JMU and ECU and USF.
Yeah, Charlotte's new this year. I thought somebody else jumped ship, but I could be wrong.
Still messing with my earpiece. This is so frustrating. You know what I blamed this on yesterday? The intern, Chris, helped me with the earpiece, and I think he's damaged it. This is my big thing with interns. This is why I don't like the interns, Pilk. That's why I don't care for them. They break stuff.
Start getting paid, and
then I really don't like them.
Dom fine.
Dom's fine. Well, you were an intern.
Yeah.
If you think about it, we've had a remarkable run. Ben B. Baby Byram, who recently celebrated a birthday, shout out Ben B. and also became a Papa Bear. Ben B. Baby started out as an intern and got thrust into and couldn't get us on the air the first 2 days. He got thrust in.
To be fair, I think I think he was still an intern when he got stuck putting you guys
yes,
on the air.
He was.
The guy quit in the middle of the day and
No. There was more to it than that, but we can't go into that. But Ben B. Baby became the producer and then became a star.
Yeah.
And then became a big TV producer. And then we had Cookie, who got hired on. Who?
Joey Football started as an intern.
Yeah, Joey Football started as an intern. You started as an intern.
Grover.
William Grover said, well, you're not building a good case. And we've had other good interns. Did Xavier ever work here?
I don't think he ever... He might have done.
Xavier was our best intern.
That's what I've heard. I've never met him, but that's what I heard.
Xavier has become a big producer and big radio star in his own right.
And then we had intern Casey.
Oh, God. You talk about the grumpiest. He made me look like a ray of sunshine.
Oh, he does. I love the guy, but, he's grumpy.
And now he's out in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina, isn't he?
Yeah.
Is he still out there? Blue hosing it?
Yeah.
Clinton, South Carolina.
Clinton, there it is. I knew it was named after some bad president.
Actually smaller than Clinton, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Can you believe, does he like it there?
I think he likes the job. I think he doesn't like that it's so remote, but so he pretty much, the way I've understood it, their athletic departments ran a little different, but pretty much he's got Drew Steele's job, but at Presbyterian would be the best, I think.
Okay. Shout out Drew Steele, one of the good guys.
East Carolina,
yes.
Yeah.
Drew Steele, one of the good guys, and got Sugar-Free Starry in the softball press box for me this year. Speaking of which, Softball will be playing 3 games this weekend, so we're looking forward to that. That is coming your way on ESPN Plus tomorrow at 5 through the magic of radio. I'll be here also. 1 o'clock, I believe it is. Pilt confirmed that on Saturday and noon on Sunday. Now, this is all Mother Nature pending. What's going on in my hair here? Just a lot happening at the moment. All right, we're going to hit a break. When we come back, we will preview ECU lacrosse as they will play tonight after losing a heartbreaker, which would have given them the conference regular season championship, the number 1 seed. They lost last Saturday, to JMU in sudden death OT. Yes, Bill.
2 o'clock Saturday for softball as of now.
1 Central. Again, this is all weather pending. All right, we'll be back with more of the Patrick Johnson Show and Gabby Sartori, Joe Giglio also still to come. Stay with us on this Thursday, the first day of May.
You ready for this?
Oh, I'm very ready. Okay, ready?
You ready? Streaming to the world at 943thegame.com. This is the Patrick Johnson Show. Now in all his glory, here's the P-Man.
Coming up tonight on ESPN Plus at approximately 7:15, it will be Game 2 of the semifinal round of the lacrosse championships for the American Athletic Conference. And East Carolina will be playing. They'll be taking on South Florida. Here to preview the matchup and talk to us about it is the analyst for Pirate Lacrosse on ESPN Plus, Gabby Sartori, who also played at Brown in the Ivy
thanks
League.
for having me here.
Welcome to the Patrick Johnson Show. You're far too intelligent to be talking to Pilk and me because you went to an Ivy League school. So, Gabby, great to have you on. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here. This is awesome.
So the last 4 games for ECU lacrosse have been decided by a grand total of 4 goals total. So they played in a lot of nail biters. The last time a game was not decided by just a single goal, it was against USF, who is in their first year in the league, and they just blew by ECU. So what has changed in the last 4 outings from where they had USF in? I remember that weekend, and USF just kind of handled them.
Yeah, well, short answer is they're a complete different team. And that's the one thing I asked Coach Dipper before this JMU game, because that was the only way I could compare the two from like a point blank standpoint. JMU had no problem with South Florida, beat them by, I think 12 goals. And you said it before, South Florida beat ECU on the home turf by 14. So that was my question. And Coach Dipper said, we're a complete different team. What you saw that day, I don't even know that team anymore. And I think from a standpoint of being on the call for so many of these games, I completely agree. This team is just, their mentality has just shifted. A lot of people are stepping up. And what you saw in this last game against JMU, you got people like Riley Matson stepping up, Keila Scofani stepping up. And that's really what's going to get them ahead. And I think in this one, South Florida is not going to be prepared for that.
So it was announced yesterday that Emma Magazu was named the Defensive Player of the Year in the American, and then Kayla Wilkes was named the Midfielder Player of the Year. What about their play earned them these respective designations?
Well, for Kayla Wilkes, she is probably the most consistent player on this ECU roster. And that's why it's a little, when you're watching the Pirates, it's a little frustrating because more people need to step up, but she always steps up, whether it's on the draw circle, defensive end, she's all over the place. And I think what's really special about her game is she will always find a way to contribute somehow. In this last game, the goals weren't, she wasn't in the box score for a while until the final stretch where it was crucial for them to get some goals on the board. And she found a way to contribute somehow. She was the ball carrier on the clear, which is something that they have an issue with. And she's someone you could really rely on. And as far as Emma Magazu, my goodness, she is such a great pickup from the transfer portal coming out of UNH. And what I've seen from her game is the composure to be a leader on that defense. And she shut down Maddie Epke, who is, I think, the player of the year in the American, at least the attacker player of the year. But again, another phenomenal player. And Emma Magazu shut her down for the majority of this game. Is something that really keeps her set apart from the rest is how quick she is on defense, footwork wise. She's very shifty, and when people are trying to dodge around her or against her, she almost it's like she's guessing, but she's not, and she gets ahead of that first cut, and that's something that really sets her apart and anchors this Pirate defense. They had an outstanding game against JMU, and if they do that again against South Florida, this should be an easy one.
Gabby Sartori, ESPN Plus, ECU women's lacrosse analyst, also a reporter with ESPN Plus, and also works for WNCT here locally. So Gabby's a busy lady out and about doing things. All right, let me, in that game, JMU, and I watched kind of from basically all the final second half. I watched it live last Saturday. And the Pirates eventually, they couldn't create separation. They eventually, with about maybe 3 or 4 minutes to go, get that separation of about 2 goals, and then it was a great comeback by JMU. What I guess didn't allow them to either extend it or hold on? I mean, what were ECU's shortcomings? I understand JMU is fantastic and a top 10 team and all that, but what kind of went wrong after ECU did build with about 3 minutes to go? I think it was that 2-goal lead.
Yeah, I think I said a couple times that they have a lot of organized chaos. And when they scored 1 goal, it was like a moment of brilliance. And they couldn't really continue that momentum because the next possession, it would be a turnover and just like stupid mistakes, and mentally in games like that, it's hard to fight back like they did consistently. But this defense really saved their butts, I'd say, because they would get the ball right back for them. And it was like every other possession, they were scoring. It was just lacking the consistency of their offense. Once they got a groove, I think they understood what was working, and that was like the final, what you said, 3 minutes left. But they got to do that throughout the entire game. There were a couple times in the first half they saw a weakness in the JMU defense on the backside crease, so they got that a couple times. They got that working. Then the second half, when that 3-minute spurt happened and the 2-goal differential finally broke in, it was because they were finding downhill cuts. And I think that's when they slowed their offense down, is when they really got their groove. When they're a little sporadic and a little crazy with the ball and kind of trying to do the most, that's when you see a little bit of a lapse in their offense.
Gabby, last year, and I know you're just kind of going on maybe what you saw last year, if hardly anything. And I understand, they get Magazu out of the portal, as you noted. But how is the team different? Because, had a coaching change, pretty good year. Last year, everybody but one person returning, not a great year. And just 1 win in the conference. And then you look this year, and even though they're a couple games under 500, they played a really challenging schedule, but ended up going 5-1, or was it 5-2 maybe in the conference? Anyway, just 2 conference losses, and one of them very narrow and could have easily been a victory. So when you go back and you look at the difference from last season to this season, what is it that maybe stands out to you?
I think the one thing that stands out to me is that everyone who has kind of assumed their role, at least on the starting lineup, they were kind of watching for a majority of the year. Some of them, of course, returning into their starting roles. But people like, again, Kayla Wilkes, she was injured and she did not contribute last season. So having her in the mix, I think, was a big buildup. Grace McCarthy on the draw. She was a freshman last year, didn't really get her amount of reps, and this year has really honed in that role. And she was I think she was huge last game, and she's going to be huge against Chepnick on the draw coming into the South Florida game. It's just little things that make the entire unit. Jamie Bihar also was very inconsistent last year, and this year she really honed in and embraced the fact that she's the starting goalie and had a breakout game. Of course, I think everyone on this roster has found a way to contribute somehow in a positive manner. And there's Not really. I can't really think. There's a few where, for example, on the offense, people like Leah Bessany, Aaron Golden, you can get more from them. Which, if you're going into the South Florida game, that's a good thing because you're if you're Coach Dipper, you're trying to get the most out of them, and they certainly are people that are capable of doing so. From being on that roster last year and seeing how that season went, as opposed to now, I think everyone in short is just fired up, and they could see that the ceiling is high for this team going into American Athletic Conference championships.
All right, so that's coming up tonight. It'll be South Florida, the opponent. When you look at South Florida, what makes them such a dangerous team in their first year?
Man, I absolutely love this South Florida team. That was definitely one of my favorite teams to commentate for, and I think the newness of them makes them so intriguing to not only people watching them but the entire league. They have put everyone on notice. Sophia Chepnik is so fun to watch, of course, and just having that dynamic with her, Caitlin Tartaglione, and the entire unit. Their offense is ridiculous. They will look to pounce on the goal at 70 in the shot clock. It's kind of like ECU's offense where they're goal like shot first oriented, not really trying to set anything up. And then on the defensive end, they have a 12-man ride. So that was something that gave ECU a lot of fits. And that's the only team, at least that I've seen in the American, that does that and succeeds at it. So that's the big thing that you're going to want to watch out for if you're ECU. And definitely one thing I'd say they're practicing on quite a lot leading into this one.
So one of the growth sports has been men's lacrosse, college men's lacrosse, and we've even seen some professional leagues crop up as well. But that's a sport that has grown, especially this time of year. From the standpoint of the women's game, what is the growth of it? What's the trajectory of it right now?
Oh my gosh, I think the sky's the limit for this sport. Obviously, you got powerhouses like South Florida, Temple, Charlotte, Old Dominion, very new. Even ECU is kind of new. Like all of these new teams, and they are just dominating at the sport. And if there was an argument on why you should be adding new lacrosse programs, I would tell them to look at this conference because of how close it is. And some of these new teams are making a name for themselves in this league. I think once the South especially realizes that lacrosse is the thing that they should be adding, you could see the success with Clemson. You see the success with all of these other big schools in the South. Like I said before, South Florida, that has just dominated. That'll be the trajectory where this is going. Teams like, I think it'd be so fun if a team like Memphis or Tulane had lacrosse, and you're able to now add them into the mix, and it just makes things so much more entertaining. And obviously, big football schools, they do not have lacrosse yet. Alabama has a club team. Even something like LSU, they just have club teams. Once, I think the envelope will open even more once programs like that try to bring in lacrosse. And it's going to be really exciting to watch. From playing lacrosse up north for as long as I have, I've been waiting for this. It's kind of just been like a little bubble up there. Like, all right, we're the only ones that have lacrosse. But now when you come down here and you see what's out there, that there's so much of a limit that lacrosse can break through.
The name Sartori and the accent, you're not from Jones County. So how do you like living in the South?
Man, so I'm from New York. And obviously,
No.
the hand talking, New York Italian at its finest, of course. And, in New York, people are very just head down. How's your day going? Fine. Just got to deal with that stuff. I think the South, it was so weird. My first weekend here, I was in a food store and someone asked do you need any help? I'm like, all right, what are they getting at? What do they want? It's just I really had to get used to the fact that everyone's so nice down here, which has been awesome. And I mean, April, I'm in a tank top and shorts. That's ridiculous. I had no concept of that until moving down here. So that has also been a treat.
All right, Gabby, what do the Pirates have to do to beat South Florida tonight and punch their ticket to get into the championship game Saturday?
Yeah, I honestly think this is going to be all about the ride, or the clear on the ECU part. That 12-man ride gave them fits. It probably gave them at least 10 plus turnovers during that game when they met. And that's a good chunk of the goals that they were down by the entire game. I definitely also think they got to get ahead quick. They went down 7-0 in the first few minutes last time they played. And if they get ahead, if they get a few goals early, that's enough for this team to feed off of. And once you get that little ounce of momentum, everyone on that field buys in. So, and also let the players speak for themselves. You got Kayla Wilkes and Magazoo coming off those awards. I think they're going to be fired up going into this one.
Great job Saturday by you, Gabby, and Zach Burley. You two were very entertaining and informative and did a fantastic job. And thank you for being on the show here today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see Gabby Sartori down the road, I'm sure. Great to have her on. You can check her out, of course, on WNCT Channel 9. And right now, ahead of Joe Giglio joining us to talk Belichick. Let's go to Philip the Ref Pilkington. He's got a 94.3 The Game sports update and Pirate report. Pilk.
Thank you, P-Man. Starting in Pirate Athletics, as Gabby and Patrick just talked about, lacrosse will be in action tonight at roughly 7:15 when they play the two-seeded South Florida Bulls in the first round of the American Athletic Conference Tournament. The winner will play Saturday in the championship game against the winner of Vanderbilt and James Madison. Those two teams are currently in action. It was a good night on the mound last night for a pair of former Pirate pitchers. Zach Agnos gets his first career Major League save in a 2-1 victory over the Atlanta Braves. Jeff Hoffman threw 2 scoreless innings, the 9th and the 10th, against the Boston Red Sox and got a win, and big thanks to the Sox blowing a 6-0 lead much earlier in the game because they don't know how to pitch. And we will move on now to the NBA, where there are a pair of games tonight, pair of game 6s. In the Motor City, the 6-seeded Pistons will try and fight off elimination as they host the 3-seeded Knicks. And then at 10 o'clock, it'll be the same scenario for the hometown Clippers. They're down 3-2 to the 4-seeded Denver Nuggets. Moving over to the ice now, the NHL battle of two teams north of the border heads to the capital city of Canada, where the Ottawa Senators will try and fend off elimination in Game 6 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then at 7:30, it's going to be Wild Vegas. That game is going on in St. Paul, Minnesota, where the Wild will try and stay alive. They trail 3-2. Also a home team trailing 3-2 is the Colorado Avalanche. They will battle the Dallas Stars at 9:30. And then the late game, the only team that is at home for Game 6 and is up in the series is the defending Western Conference champion Edmonton Oilers, as they will try and close out the Los Angeles Kings tonight. That'll do it for 94.3 The Game Sports Flash Update and Pirate Report. Going to take a time out here on the Patrick Johnson Show. Be joined by Joe Giglio on the other side.
We are.
Riding shotgun with you on the drive home.
It's showtime.
This is the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
Do we carry Giglio the rest of the show? I think so, if he'll do it, right?
I think you'll do it.
Who's the intern for IGO? Is it James Giglio?
James, yeah.
The father of James Giglio.
A little disappointed the other night.
Yeah, oh yeah. The father of James Giglio joins us. Joe Giglio from the OG podcast. And he is with us here on the Patrick Johnson Show. Joe, first of all, I ran into James the other day around the studios, and he spoke to me. I told you this off the air. It sounded just like you. It was eerie. I was kind of like, wait a second. Wait a minute.
Wait a second.
And and then I listened to him on IGO show that day, and it was like, oh my God, he sounds just like his dad. So is he liking that? Is IGO treating him good?
You know, P-Man, I keep trying to talk him out of this stuff, and he just keeps coming back for more. So I don't know. I guess I'm
going to part of it. Look, that is a true. They ain't built like that anymore, Joe. They're not like you and me, where I'd go hang out at the radio station, or you'd hang around the newsroom. This crowd isn't like we are or were.
They're trying to be,
and
though. I will say that.
Well, the ones that are, you could tell the real ones. You can tell the real ones, and I think you got you a real one there on your hands there, and that's good. That's a good thing. It's a fun gig. It could be incredibly unfair, and it doesn't pay great, but it's a fun gig, undoubtedly. So We always have fun. The great Joe Giglio, who is always willing to humor me and come on the program. Obviously, Joe, we're going to talk about Duke spring football. No, we're talking about, let's talk about all that's going on out of Chapel Hill. So we'll start at the very beginning. This book, which I bet is awful, 260 plus pages that Belichick has written, doesn't acknowledge Robert Kraft. So he does the interview on CBS Sundays, which is a fantastic, sit around, drink some coffee Sunday kind of show. I got clips of it. I was doing a game Sunday afternoon. I'm starting to get the Twitter clips of it. And so I didn't really see it till that night. And then I watched the whole thing through on Monday. And it was a really good piece. It was an interesting piece. It's interesting how CBS kind of shoehorned the thing in there, but now we're learning this was just a small snippet into what was a bigger kind of fiasco that day.
Yeah, there's not a single chance that North Carolina signed up for any of this, Patrick. You go out, you quadruple your investment in football. This is a school that hasn't won an ACC title since 1980. Undoubtedly, they looked at SMU and Indiana and said, man, if SMU and Indiana can do this, we can do this. Surely the University of the People can do this. And Bill Belichick sold them a bill of goods. And now they're left with what can only be something that if it was one of your relatives, like if that was my dad and someone was 50 years younger than him acting like that, I would have frozen all of his assets and put his house in trust and made sure that his bank accounts passwords were all changed overnight. I'm not really sure how else to describe this at this point, and particularly in light of the news from the Daily Mail that Jordan Hudson has $8 million in real estate assets now since the beginning of her relationship with Bill Belichick. I'm really not sure how else to describe this at this point. The CBS This Morning interview, he looked like a hostage in that interview. For a guy who is known for winning and attention to detail, right down to knowing what the Seattle Seahawks were going to do on the goal line, preparing his nickel back just in case Pete Carroll calls the stupidest play in the history of organized football. That guy was sitting there in a raggedy Navy sweatshirt and looking like he hadn't been fed and had been waterboarded for the last 3 hours and then had to look to his torturer for permission. That's what I have no other way to describe that. No other way.
And it seems like something innocuous, like how did you meet? And this then has now opened apparently a Pandora's box of like a treasure trove of just information where had she not acted in that manner or had they answered it or handled it differently, none of this would be coming to light right now. That answer has blown this thing wide open, or how that answer was handled.
Or how about this, Patrick? As someone who's been around the media forever, maybe you do open a practice up. Maybe you do put numbers on their jersey. Maybe you do give people something to talk about.
That's true.
In the absence of information, people will find something to talk about in the absence of what you provide. They have provided nothing in Chapel Hill other than now all of the FOIA requests, now all the information that you're forced to dig for. And, like I said, Bill Belichick came in, told them one thing, and now here they are. And if you would have told me when this whole charade started, or it started as a fantasy, let's start there. If you would have told me when this whole fantasy started that Bill Belichick wouldn't coach a game for the University of North Carolina, I would say I've got even money on that. After the introductory press conference, I would have said, okay, it looks like he's really going to do this. And then when you see the buyout change on June 1st, you're thinking, well, maybe there is something to him not being here. Now I think North Carolina is the one that's going to have to take a hard look and say, is this really what we want? Is this really what we signed up for? Because he does not seem to be in charge of anything. And that has to be alarming because somehow, some way, I don't think the quote unquote 100-page Bible that was presented to Lee Roberts in New York in a 4-hour meeting where Bill was giving them the heavy pitch to become a $10 million a year coach. the highest paid coach in the ACC, or right behind Dabo Swinney, who's got 2 national titles. I somehow don't think it included a cheerleader from Bridgewater State coming onto the field and adjusting his microphone and interrupting him in interviews and needing to be CC'd on all emails that concern Bill or BB, if you will. So
Yeah.
I somehow don't think any of that was in the cards that were presented to North Carolina. I think North Carolina looked at this as a real opportunity to become a major player in college football under the new structure of the House settlement and revenue sharing and investment. Well, we will never have a need to pass the hat for UNC. We know this, but I'm looking at this as almost like Bill's being held hostage by Jordan Hudson, and now the UNC is being held hostage by the 2 of them. And you think about the financial commitment involved here, Patrick. It's not just Bill Belichick; it's 2 of Bill Belichick's sons, and then there's one of Bill Belichick's friends is the general manager, and then one of his sons is on the coaching staff. You got about 15, $16 million invested in 5 people. And what did they do in the
snap
portal?
yet?
Yeah. But what did they do in the portal? They got a guy from Holy Cross. They got a transfer from Holy Cross. Right. They had a backup quarterback from Purdue who's already back at Purdue. They got a couple of guys from UConn who allegedly they're super excited about that they ran their own guys off for, which, okay, good luck. Patrick, there's only one way to win in college football. That is to have and when I say win, Patrick, you and I have seen 100 coaches come in here and go 7-5. I'm not talking about going 7-5 or 8-4. I'm talking about being Indiana. I'm talking about being SMU. I'm talking about being in the college football playoff. I'm talking about winning their first ACC title since 1980. All right,
Joe,
when I talk about those things, Patrick, I'm not saying you're coming in here to do something. You want to do it, you got to have tippy top talent. I said this after the contracts were dry. The number one move I will know if Bill Belichick is serious, Caleb Downs at Ohio State. His brother played for UNC, Josh. His uncle is Dre Bly. If they went out and spent $3 million or $5 million on Caleb Downs to be a safety, to be the Rodney Harrison safety in Bill Belichick's defense, I would say, clear the decks. Here come the Tar Heels. But that's not what happened. Right. And I mean, it's just this couldn't be a bigger train wreck for UNC right now.
Joe, they had to bring in a guy from Holy Cross. They need to bump up the team GPA. Do you know how hard it is to get into Holy Cross? Carolina's got to have at least one athlete who goes to class. Come on, man. Just one. And I'm sure he can pass class at Carolina if he got into Holy Cross. That's what he's there for.
There's 3 lacrosse players, too, which everyone, made the joke. So on the bingo card here, all of these things worked for the Patriots, guys, because you had Tom Brady, because you had Rodney Harrison, because you had Hall of Famers. At UNC, you're trying to make the whole plane out of Chris Hogan. That doesn't work when you don't have Tom Brady, when you don't have the greatest quarterback of all time. So I think the challenge is real for Carolina. Their schedule is incredibly easy, but they could lose opening night to TCU. And man, you want to see some real chaos. It's one thing to have all this stuff going on in May, and there's no wins, there's no losses. But if all of this investment is made and there's no payoff, I don't see this ending really well for anyone involved.
From the OG podcast, which you can download anywhere you download your favorite podcast, it is Joe Giglio with us here on the Patrick Johnson Show. So we're a month away from the buyout shrinking. Do the Tar Heels buy him out?
That's what I'm saying. They're going to have to think hard about this. I don't think they will. Now, short of another, now the financial revelation from the Daily Mail that Jordan Hudson's already cashed in basically a $7 million lottery ticket. That's alarming in of itself, but that's more of on a personal level. I'm not at practice. No one's at practice. So UNC might be lighting the world on fire with all of these, spare parts in the island of the misfit portal toys. I don't know. And maybe Bubba Cunningham and Lee Roberts are at practice and saying, we're getting our money's worth out of this. To be fair, you got to remember North Carolina's coming from a situation where they lost games because of their football coach. I am fairly confident in whatever mental state he is in, Bill Belichick's not going to lose football games because of him. You know what I mean? They're going to win games. And they're going to be prepared. We know all of these things. But that's the old Bill Belichick, the do your job Bill Belichick. The main thing is the main thing. There are no distractions. I really don't know how else to qualify Jordan Hudson. I would love, like if I was 28 again and feeling hungry and feeling really strong, I'd find a former wife. I would absolutely call every single one of his former assistant coaches and say, do you even recognize this person? And my
Right.
guess is no. My guess is no. It just seems so out of character for Mr. We're on to Cincinnati, for Mr. Again, do your job. Don't, his whole life has been this mantra. And it's almost like he's under a spell right now. And I would imagine the people closest to him or his former colleagues are looking at him just being like, where'd the hard ass go? That was, you hear all these stories from Julian Edelman on his podcast about, these legendary Belichick eruptions and embarrassments to all of the people who didn't, quote unquote, do their job.
Right.
I just think they are the ones probably who are more baffled by this than anyone else.
Joe, when you look at the fact that nobody, they set this thing up with CBS, the university has nothing to do with it. Okay, well, it's, Belichick's book that presumably he wrote before he took the job. But the publisher, Simon & Schuster, this wasn't like he self-published this thing.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the big boys. They had nobody there. And you and I have done a gazillion interviews with people who have published books, even at much lower level publishers.
Yeah.
There is somebody in communication with you or your producers, either on site, really on the phone line.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
On site, on the phone line, or they follow up as soon as the interview's over. I mean, that to me, because Simon & Schuster has invested a good deal of money in this, that blows. I've never seen that before. That nobody's there from the publisher. That's wild.
It just feels like to me, again, Belichick's in this for Belichick and for Jordan Hudson. There's no UNC to any of this, right down to the fact that it was done in Annapolis. Fine, that's where he grew up. And he's wearing this raggedy old Navy sweatshirt, and I'm sure Jordan Hudson thought that was like sweet, cute. Oh, look at BB in his cutoff sweatshirt from 1974. But Patrick, he's being paid $10 million to be the football coach of the University of North Carolina.
Right. And he's in a suit, and he's on CBS. Put on a suit, bro.
Or I have a quarter zip right now from one of my sponsors. Like, how hard is it to put a quarter zip on for UNC, dark blue, and it has a UNC logo on it? And people might think, oh, you're just being petty or whatever. It's like, no, I'm someone who runs my own business. I'm not paying anybody $10 million a year. You can be sure as day that if I'm paying you $10 million, you're going to rep me. And you're going to rep my business.
You'd have the OG if it was an OG, they'd have the OG logo on the quarter zip.
Yes, and it's you could say that's a small thing, but again, think of what I'm trying to watch my language here. You got me fired up this morning, but think of what a hard ass he's been for all of these years. And you might say, well, it's a small thing. Do you know how many times Bill Belichick's probably undressed somebody in a film session about the small things? Like, you can't even rep your own school. The week before, he had an Iowa sweatshirt on in a different social media post. And you could say again, well, maybe social media, Giglio, doesn't really matter. It's like, I don't know. At some point, you may want to, I don't know, pretend that you're the head coach at UNC and not this nonsense, complete and utter and total nonsense of the 33rd NFL team. You know what the 33rd NFL team means? It means you have the number 1 pick in the draft next year. That's what that means.
What is the UNC? What are you hearing out of your contacts there? I mean, I can't imagine that they're enjoying what's going on right now, because this is so off-brand from them.
Yeah. I think they took a leap, and they took a leap thinking they were getting the 6-time Super Bowl champion, thinking they were getting the greatest coach, the quote unquote, because he's not, in my opinion, because you can't be if you have a losing record without Tom Brady. But they thought they were getting the greatest coach in football history. And clearly, 5 months into this, it's been anathema to what we've seen out of Bill Belichick, Super Bowl winning coach. again, straight lace, straight line, all the details, all the prep, right down like to the portal and what they did in the portal as well, if you want to really bring it back to football.
Right.
But I know behind the scenes, there is a level of frustration there in terms of, okay, now, and Patrick, you know this. I was asked yesterday by a local television station about, is it unusual for someone's significant other to be involved, a coach's significant other to be involved? No. I'm sure you can tell stories just as I can of, Dave Doran's wife. They gave $1 million to the school, but her name was on that gift as well.
Sure.
And not because of some nominal reason. It was like, they felt strongly as a family. And every summer before they have practice, Dave and Sarah have a group of players to their house for a barbecue to prepare for the season. Like, these are all normal things. Like, I bristle some. I was listening to some radio, and I heard national radio. I heard, one of the women working on the show was like, well, why are we trying to make this out like she's some sort of like, stereotypical woman, like interfering and doesn't have a place in all of this. And I'm not trying to do that. But at North Carolina, I can tell you, like, she does not have an official position. So she's got 15 LLCs that are registered to her name. One is including Chapel Bill. So she's obviously trying to position it on the business side for Bill to make money. I mean, how much money does he need? I don't know. But she's not an employee of UNC. And so for her to be so involved to the point of, hey, can you CC all of your emails to me, to Jordan, from the people on the communication staff and people in the athletic department? I mean, that seems a little bit like of an overreach, because I got news for you, Bill. There's like a little forward button on your email. You could have saved yourself this embarrassment. Just forward it to her. If you want her to see the emails, just forward it to her.
Right.
It's ain't hard.
We're out of time. We'll get you,
by the way.
Yeah, we'll get you again soon. But thank you. And awesome to have you on, as it always is. We'll talk to you soon. Though. Thank you, Joe.
And I will tell James for your kind words. Thank you.
Sure thing. There he is, the great Joe Giglio. James' dad with us. Thanks to him. Thanks to Gabby Sartori. Thanks to Pilk. Back tomorrow. We'll preview East Carolina and Wichita State and more. Mike Mullis will be with us from ESPN Plus to do that. See you in the morning on Talk of the Town, and then back here tomorrow for the Get You to the Weekend edition of the Patrick Johnson Show.